Hi, fourth graders. Welcome to your first math lesson. I will be going through steps with you on how the lesson works. You would have seen a note-taking sheet, or not note-taking sheet, I'm sorry, how to take notes in your notebook. So you'll need your math notebook. You need to be sitting up, ready to go. In certain places, I will tell you to take some notes. Other times, I want you to just be thinking about things you could write down that are important. Okay, so let's get started. Our first lesson is on estimation, called Estimation Challenge. So we're going to start with a warm-up, kind of like we would do in normal math class, and we're going to do a little rounding practice. So I'm actually going to push on here, and this is IXL's website. And IXL is, you can get a membership, but remember I said you can usually go on it for about 15 minutes free every day. So we're going to do a few problems together. And then after the lesson, I encourage you to go to IXL and do some rounding practice. So this says, what is $169.46 rounded to the nearest 10 cents? So we're talking about 10 cents now. So we're talking about 46. That's what we're talking about. So we need to round it 169. And I hope you're all thinking that it would need to be 50 cents. I hope that's what everybody was thinking in their head as we did it, so that we get it correct. And we are brilliant, okay? What is 1,521 rounded to the nearest 10? Well, we know 1,500 and we have 21. We know that 1 is not a 5 or higher, so we need to round it down. I hope that that is what you were thinking when you did it. What is 6,003 rounded to the nearest 1,000? Again, hopefully everybody knows that it would just be 6,000. Okay, we're going to move on now. I'm not going to take any more time, but I would hope that you would go in here and do a little more practice on your own when you're done with the lesson. So today, here's my first question for you. If you were measuring the length of a bus, what unit of measurement would you use? I'm going to think right now and write down on your paper bus measurement and think about what unit of measurement you'd want to use. Okay, now you're going to use this unit to choose the estimate. So I'm going to pause for a minute and I want you to think about what you think the length would be in an estimate, not an Okay, so hopefully you have thought about what unit of measurement you would use and how long you think a bus would be. Now, for us, measuring a bus, there are many different things we could use, but hopefully you understand that in our measurement, we'd probably want to use a yardstick or a tape measure, but I think that a yardstick is more practical because that's what we have. And so I'm hoping that's what you said. Now, up here, I want to talk to you about estimate again. What is the difference between an estimate and an exact answer? I'd like you to write down what your thought is on this. What is the difference between an estimate and an exact answer? And then the second part of it says, do we always need an exact answer? So take a few minutes, write that down. I will pause again so you can write down your answers. Please feel free to pause the lesson at any time you need to, so you have a little time to write also. So hopefully you all have your definition. Okay, so let's get moving on to our next part. It's called the estimation challenge, and I'm going to read it with you. Sometimes you will be asked to solve a problem for which it is difficult or even impossible to find an exact answer. Your job will be to make your best estimate and then defend it. We call this kind of problem an estimation challenge. So a lot of times people aren't looking for the exact answer, but an estimate. And you get to support it by saying, well, I know this would be a good estimate because, and then you get to give your information or how you would have measured it or how you would have added or whatever you would have done. So Imagine you are living in a time when there are no cars, trains, or planes. You do not own a horse, a boat, or any other means of transportation. You plan to travel by blank. You will have to walk there. You will travel to, blank. So it says we can Google a park or a store that is several miles away, and we can Google Map or MapQuest it. So I am going to pick Long Lake Park. So Long Lake Park is actually what I'm going to write in there. And I'm going to say Long Lake. Oops, I better capitalize it, right? Okay, so that's going to be our destination. And I need to change the size because it's a little bit big. So we're going to change it to about a 14. Okay, perfect. And Long Lake Park is what we're going to use. All right, so Long Lake Park is our destination. Okay, moving right along. Okay, so sometimes you will be asked to solve a problem for which it is difficult or even possible to find an exact answer. Your job will be to make the best estimate and defend it. And again, this is a part of the problem that I said before. What information do you need to begin this problem? So before, and you know your location, what do you need before you can figure this out? So think about what would you need to know before you could start or make an estimation on how far you thought it was. I'm going to give you a little hint here, okay? So a definition of a step, is the length of a step. Now, a step is just a normal step, not as far as I can stretch my legs out, but just a normal step. You're just walking, and somebody actually can measure the front of your back foot to the front of your other foot, so right to left or left to right. And 1 mile actually equals 5,280 feet. So now what you need to think about is, do I think it's more than 1 mile? Less than a mile? Those are the kinds of things you need to think about right now as you are making an estimation in your head. Okay, moving on. About how many miles is it from your school to your destination? About how many footsteps will you have to take to get from your school to your destination? And what did you do to estimate the number of footsteps you would take? Okay, so I want you to think about how far it is from our school to Long Lake Park. So if I gave you the miles, could you figure it out? And I'm going to give you the miles. Our miles is actually 2. So how are you going to make an estimation? Now again, I do not want the exact answer. I just want an estimate, okay? So what can you use now to figure this out? Please write down 1, 2, and 1, 2A and 2B on your paper so that you can bring this in and tell me how you did it. Please remember, I've given you the answer to number 1. So now you make an estimate, not an exact answer, estimate, okay? And moving on. Suppose you start from school at 7 a.m. on Monday. You take time out to rest, eat, and sleep, and for other reasons. List reasons you might stop along the way. For each reason, write about how long you would stop. So if we were walking from school to Long Lake Park, now obviously we're not going to have a lot of stops, but what might be something we would stop for? Okay. Now I want you to think about it in terms of what if we went on a further trip? Okay. Let's say we went to the Mall of America, for instance, from Bel Air. Okay, now we need to think about why would we stop? What would be some reasons that we would stop? And how long do you think we would stop? Okay, so we're going to work on this in class on Tuesday. So you do not need to write anything down on this page at all, but I hope you've been kind of taking notes along the way, because I want to give you a new area or a new location in which we can do a little more estimation challenges with, and think about reasons that people do stop if they're riding their bike or walking somewhere. But don't feel like you have to write anything down. Okay, let's go back and let's review. And Mrs. Heath forgot to write her objective on here, so that's not so great, is it? So I need to go back up again. Sorry about that. Our objective for our lesson is actually to think about what it means to estimate. What is the definition of estimation? Okay. And we want to develop some estimation strategies when we're finding an exact answer, so it's not impractical. So like we're finding answers that are similar or close, but it doesn't always have to be the exact answer. Great job, fourth graders. Thank you for listening to the first lesson. I hope you were able to pause, write down a few things. If you have questions, please make sure you wrote those down also, because those are things we'll talk about then in the class the next day. Have a good evening.